Come on out, Tom. Everybody welcome Tom from Uber. Good. How many people used Uber in the last 30 days? Raise your hand nice and high. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Tom, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. We've had Travis at all the launch festivals in the past, but now we've been going through
It's a big downgrade. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, here's the thing. It turns out there's a lot of people working from Travis, like Emil and yourself and other folks, who are becoming responsible for huge portions of Uber's business. This is not just cars taking you from point A to point B anymore. Explain to the audience what you do at Uber and why that's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your domain?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm in charge of global expansion, which is nothing like what I thought it would be when I joined. The way I think about it is I lead all of the new businesses that are built on top of our platform of moving people. And so that's everything from Uber for Business, which is like our enterprise application, to the API for strategic partnerships and sort of becoming the fabric of transportation across the internet.
This Uber for Business thing, was that Josh's idea in New York, or was he the first to implement it?
I don't know if he was the first to implement it, but it definitely came out of New York because it was one of these things where companies were just telling us, hey, like all of our people are riding on Uber, we'd really like to know what's going on, we'd really like to control this. So it gives them, think of it just like Google for Work, where they can, companies can come in and set policies and rules so that it's both easier for employees to ride, but also you don't have a junior employee riding a black SUV, on the company's dime.
Yeah, I remember when I was in New York in the 90s working for Mike Savino, we had all these vouchers.
Yeah.
And this was like, if you got a voucher from Mike, you could take it, but there was wait time, and people could do all kinds of shenanigans, but it was kind of a golden ticket to get driven around New York in a Lincoln Town Car.
Yeah.
How has that product done? I've heard some whispers internally that the enterprise product is just wildly crushing it, that you're just ripping through the large enterprises because this is saving them so much money and saving them so much accounting headache.
Yeah, you're hitting all the right points. Where basically this is a true win for everybody. It's similar to on the one side we talk about from the employee side. It's like when people started bringing their iPhones to work, and companies were very quickly forced to adapt to a BYOD policy as opposed to just using the company issued BlackBerry. So on the employee side, we have this incredible upswelling where employees everywhere are saying, "Hey, look, I ride Uber. Please make it easier for me." But then we also have the companion to the companies. It's super easy because we go to the CFO and we say, look, you're overpaying. Tell us how much you're spending on ground transportation, and we'll tell you how much you could be saving if you were going with Uber. And what's more, you don't have to worry about out of travel policy compliance and things like that because you can set all the rules. So it's a pretty easy sell. There's a lot of features we're building. Yesterday we finally released expense account integrations, which was a huge thing. It sounds really boring, but man, I was up in Seattle yesterday, and just the reassurance of, I took the Uber to the airport, I then took it from the airport, I took 4 rides yesterday, and I know that they're just sitting there in Expensify. I don't have to worry about, am I going to remember to expense them? So it's a bunch of block and tackle work like that makes it really good.
Okay, what are we seeing here on slide number 2? We'll advance over
Sure.
there, and we see the nice watch.
Yeah.
How do people use the watch? I know that Apple made a big deal about the watch. I know we're getting into the Messenger here, but just to stop on the watch for a second, are people ordering on the Apple Watch the cars a lot, or is it just like a cool feature for now?
So I think it's some of both, and they're definitely doing it. We're seeing the volume, but to me right now it's a lot about how do we marry distribution with utility. The hurdle we have to overcome is what makes this integration good enough or better enough that you're not going to pull out your phone and just open the Uber app.
It's not there yet.
It's not quite there yet. There are others that are getting there. One that I just got an Amazon Echo last week.
Oh, wow, it's so good.
If you've seen the video on that one, it's surprisingly cool. I mean, again, it's silly. I can open my phone and request things, but to be able to say, hey, Alexa, get me an Uber to work, and have it talk back to you and say, great, your Uber to work is 2 minutes away.
And it puts the to work address in for you. Which is really kind of the killer piece.
That I think is the cool stuff. You can use different phrasings. You can say, get me a car, get me an Uber. You can even use things like get me a pool or get me a black car. And so they've done the right one step beyond work to truly make it functional, not just I can.
I'll just ask a question here. How many people here have an Amazon Echo currently? How many people here are thinking of getting one? It's really interesting. If you don't have one yet, like literally right now, order it. It is the best device to come out of Amazon since Amazon Web Services. Don't you think so?
I completely agree. And I think it's because, at least to me, they've taken that one extra step of not just seeing it as a new channel or a new medium, but actually saying what can make this magical or delightful. I mean, I guess it hits at my thing of what's going to prevent me from opening the Uber app, and that's what I think they've done across a bunch of their experiences.
And so let's talk a little bit about Messenger here. I think you have that up as an example. What's going on here?
Sure, yeah, and I think the framework here that's probably helpful is maybe just before we jump into the slide, because I think they'll start dancing around in a second, but the framework that's helpful is kind of where we've been and where we're going with the Uber API and kind of our developer ecosystem. I joke, when I got to Uber a year and a half ago, we had the world's most boring API.
It had like two features.
You could do two things. You could see how long it would take a car to get to you and how much it was going to cost you a ride, and that's it. So, not surprisingly, there was absolutely no action on the API.
Well, Google did put it in. That was nice in Google Maps, but
there were a few like FYI integrations, but it lacked some pizzazz. So last year it was entirely around let's make this thing functional, and then this year it's all around let's make it delightful. So functional was just basically saying, look, we're a company fundamentally about getting from point A to point B. So now our API, you can do all that. You can request a ride, you can change destinations, you can change vehicle classes, you can ship packages. You know, that's what last year was all about, just the building blocks to do it. And then this year, it's about two big new things. The first is around creating rich experiences all across the ecosystem, which we can, and then I'll provide some examples of each one of those. That's where the Messenger is. Experiences across the ecosystem where how do we, Uber, integrate and make it a part of the fabric of your life as you're going across devices and apps and things like that. And the second part of it is how do we make the ride an actual platform itself? If you think about it, you have millions of people every single day in rides, and now that's a new platform where we can serve content, really invite people into the Uber app to start to interact with those riders. So that's our two main foci this year.
Which is, I think the Spotify integration was the internal version of this. You integrated Spotify, I put in my account when I get to the car,
yep.
We can play it. So let's go into some examples here of
sure,
what
yeah.
we're trying
So
to do.
For some of these examples, with Messenger, again, this is about how do we distribute out across the ecosystem. And for this, it's starting with a relatively basic, you can now, just as you can with Amazon Echo, you can request a ride in Messenger and interact with we call it the Uber bot, and it's down at the bottom. You can imagine very quickly, especially for anyone who's studied sort of chat platforms in Asia, where this type of stuff can go. One of the things that I like to dream about is what would make it special? What would make me want to use Messenger versus just opening the app? And that started to say, well, what do you use Messenger for? Well, you're chatting with friends. And well, hey, wow, couldn't I create my own private Uber pool or social pool where it's me and a couple friends? I say, hey, everybody, let's go to the game. Everyone puts in their address, and we create a ride that picks me up, then her up, then him up, and then it goes. And so, so this is where I think it's the challenge that I always give to my team is, guys, you just have to pass that litmus test of what's special about this integration that's going to get me away from the Uber app and make me do it in Messenger. And so that's the type of place that we're going to do.
Yeah, the expected one is, I'm going to do this, but wow, what a neat one if I could define my pool, or I could daisy chain this, and then you could also split the cost. All of that could occur in Messenger, and you never have to leave.
That's exactly right. So
wow, powerful stuff.
Yeah. So that's I think one that I'm particularly excited about. We talked about the Pebble Watch. It's also on Samsung Gear and the iPhone or the iApp. So it's an interesting one for me because this is the Hilton app. And so Hilton is making a big push, as a bunch of hotel chains are, to get you to download their apps because they really want to own the end-to-end experience beyond just staying in the hotel. And so this is their app on the left-hand side, and you can do things like check-in, and that's their hammer to get you to use the app. The second screen here is one that we've actually partnered with them to power. So we are, via our API, giving them data about top spots in town And it's not just top spots of, they get their choices. It's, here's the most popular restaurants. But what we can do, the true Uber special layer there, is we can say, well, what are the top restaurants that people from this hotel have gone to or from? And so we can start to create a much more relevant experience for Hilton hotel guests in this example of the Alexandria Old Town Hotel.
Well, you can tell people what's buzzing in town. Hey, if I wanted to go to a nightlife, I want to go to a bar, and it's Los Angeles, you can tell us where Ubers are dropping people off in aggregate.
That's exactly right.
It'd be much cooler.
Exactly. And so you can either go aggregate, you can apply any dimension of filter, whether it's aggregate right now, whether it's last 10 days from this typical location. It's all about just helping relevancy on these type of things. So that's what it is there. And then the third screen is basically just how we weave into their map, but making it really seamless for the rider then to click a button and go. The cool part about this is we have these deep links where they basically deep link into the Uber app from these third-party experiences. Not only is that great for the rider because then they're just one click away from the ride, but more importantly, we now know where that rider came from. So when they return back to the Uber app, hey, we know you're staying at this hotel. We can suggest you want to go back to the hotel. Right. Because they're probably from out of town. Nobody knows the address of their hotel. And so even the ability to offer co-branding or other types of experience in the app, there's a whole bunch of stuff like this that we can do.
And there's an Uber for Events product where you can sort of give people credits to go use. Is there going to come a time where like Hilton will say, hey, if you're staying with us, every night you stay with us, we're going to give you a couple of dollars in Uber credits. And if I click from the Hilton app, you dump in $1 or $2. So how does money play into the API? Does money exist? And does Hilton get a little 50 cents from Uber or any? Because I know everybody gets the credit for the first time ride.
Yep.
But that's not like AdSense sharing. Are we going to start to get a piece of the action as developers?
So we're working on figuring out what the right thing to do is right now. Here's our principles behind this. We think that a healthy developer ecosystem really rests on 3 pillars. One is utility and functionality. The second is distribution, and the third is, of course, revenue. So on that one of revenue, we are trying to figure out what the right long-term thing is. As you note, absolutely, right now we pay healthy bounties for new riders and over time new drivers who API partners might bring to the platform.
Like $25 for a new rider and $500 for a driver?
It varies considerably by country, because we obviously have quite different lifetime values out of those. But we know that over time we need to find some way to provide commensurate value back. It's not clear if that value is in dollars or in exposure in the app or other things. There's
or
lots
credit.
Or dollars, credit,
Because here's the thing. If I'm Hilton and I have, Uber for Business, if we get, a kickback from you of $10,000 a month because we provided you riders and you credit our account for our employees, that's a pretty good deal. Everybody loves to ride for free. It's like a currency.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's keep going.
So that's some fun stuff there. And this one I like. This is Trip Planner, which is basically there's several apps like this that people, especially when they're traveling, use to figure out what are the best public transportation options. The reason I like to call this out is I thought these guys did a really great job in the second screen of kind of presenting the Hipmunk inspired interface.
Agony, yeah.
Exactly. You just get it. You're like, oh, UberX is that much cheaper, and you can compare the cost versus, taking a train and walking. And so I just always like this example of it's a way to just give consumers choice. And, this is never something we'd be able to do in the Uber app, but it's perfect for a third-party app to do this. So those are the front side of stuff. And if you want, I can walk you through, some of the stuff we're thinking on the other half of you.
Let's take a look at it.
So basically the theory here is that everything we talked about was Uber out to the ecosystem. Now this part of it is about Uber in. How do we invite people into creating a richer experience? You mentioned earlier the Spotify integration that we have. And so the way we think about it is that we're trying to say, here's our platform. And at the beginning we've launched with telling developers, as long as the rider gives permission, of course, they have to opt in. But now third-party developers can know where you're going, where you got picked up, how long you're going to be on that trip. And it sounds not too interesting until you start to dig in and imagine what you can do with this. So suddenly, if I'm taking a ride to A16 restaurant down the street, and I've allowed OpenTable or Yelp to connect to it, well, suddenly they can wake up and say, oh, hey, Tom, here's the dishes you should order. Or on my way back, they could say, hey, how was the restaurant? We write a review. So kind of creating that contextual, highly relevant content from the third-party apps married to our experience.
What would be really great is if you know I've open tabled it. If it told them I'm on my way and what my ETA is, then the host or hostess could actually have your table prepared down to the minute for you walking in the door.
So I love that. The way we've brainstormed some of that internally is, imagine the hotel use case. Instead of getting a hotel and hauling your bags out of the taxi or Uber and trying to fight your way into the long line of check-in, imagine if right there was the concierge waiting with a drink for you and
your room key.
Welcome to room 402. Head on up. You can invert. You check in automatically while being on the ride. So I think there's
close are you to having that? Are you talking to partners?
It's something that it is in the dream phase right now, but it's absolutely consistent with what hotels want to do. Because if you think about everyone's trying to extend their experiences beyond their front door. And for a hotel to be able to offer that type of experience, it's magical for them too. It's like when I rented cars in the old days, I would rent with Hertz because they had their gold lane. Well, this is really similar. Just imagine if a hotel chain would always offer you on-ride check-in.
And it also helps in a big way because they have yield management issues and getting the rooms ready. Just to know that you're at SFO and you're on your way, that just makes things so buttery.
Absolutely. Well, when you say yield management, there's triggered another idea. Who knows yield management in restaurants better than OpenTable? They know how many open seats they have. Imagine if you could build a ad platform on top of that where basically OpenTable and restaurants could say, hey, we have 10 open seats. It's like Groupon real time, and they could say, hey, we got 10 open seats tonight, free Uber ride if you come on down and spend $50.
Yeah, that would be wild. You open up Uber, you say, I'm going to dinner. It says, how far do you want to max commute? I say, max 12 minutes. That's my max commute. It says, okay, what do you want? I say Japanese, and it just starts going through the open table. Yeah, I might select yes, and we're all set.
Yeah, absolutely. This is there's an interesting app out there that if you haven't heard of it, I encourage you to try it. It's called Bar Roulette, and it's kind of kludgy, but it's pretty awesome. Basically, you enter those type of parameters. I'm willing to go within 5 miles or 3 miles, and you just press the button, and an Uber shows up. You get in. And you don't know where you're going, but of course the driver does because they've updated the destination. And then right when you get there, they do a reveal. They give you the Yelp reviews, and it was surprisingly interesting. So some other things you can do. I mean, this is where we talked about the on-ride experience. Right now a lot of people sit in their Uber and they just look at their phone and they dilly-dally. But imagine you're going to the ballpark. Well, ESPN could wake up and give you a preview to the game or some sort of relevant content streaming through ESPN. Or if you're going downtown,
if you're going to the Warriors arena, it should be giving you the pregame show.
That's exactly right. So,
are you going to put iPads in cars? I know this has been brought up. I brought it up with Travis. Everybody tells them to do this, but putting some kind of entertainment as an option in the cars that would be brought to you by Uber or something.
I think
if drivers want it.
So it's a great idea that people have suggested. I think there's a couple of practical challenges to it. One is, of course, these cars are the drivers' cars; they're not ours, and so the practical reality of encouraging them to do that or not, and motivating them to do it it's not under our control.
And driver partners, not
driver partners, yes. And then the second part of it is, everybody already has a cell phone, and so I think one of the interesting things here is that just people kind of prefer their own device. They have their headphones already, and they can do it. So another thing you can do, this is you obviously get into the world of connected home. I mean, it's kind of what the analog of us talking about getting checked in. Your home can be ready for you because it knows that you're coming home, and suddenly we've got that information. Someone was joking the other day. It would be really great if as you're coming home, your Munchery order would just meet you there exactly because it knows exactly when you're coming. So
that would be amazing for all the delivery services if they knew.
Yep.
Pretty epic. And what's this last one? This one's interesting.
This last one is if you think of On the Ride as a platform for gaming and or social interactions. So whether it's battling or playing poker against somebody else who's on ride, to something that I've always thought about of, hey, if you're going to a concert, your Tinder feed could be reflected by other people who are going to be at that concert tonight. So if there's a match, you could actually meet up. There's all sorts of things that I think we can weave into the experience, again, with that context of we know where you're going, and that can allow other people to deliver really relevant content.
All right, let me ask you a couple questions. I know you got to go. You guys are busy over there, a lot going on at Uber. But I got to ask you some tough questions because everybody thinks I'm going to give you softballs. First, I want to ask you not a tough one, which is just Uberpool. Is that a dating app? I mean, everybody in town is talking about Uberpool being a dating app.
It's not a dating app until you get on-trip experiences, and then somebody can build one.
Is Uberpool working or not? And is it a mistake to put the third person in the Uber pool, because I was taking Uber pool, I was loving it, until you picked up a third person, and that third person had 2 people with them, and now we had 4 people in a Prius. It felt like maybe we pushed it a little too far. How are you guys gauging the agony of Uber pool versus the affordability?
Absolutely. So look, there's the quantitative and qualitative sides to all this. I think the headline question, Uber pool is absolutely working. We've talked a lot.
Does it work for you? Because it's Uber, which is to say, I know it's working for consumers because it's so fucking cheap. It's crazy.
Yeah.
$4.75. But does Uber? I heard Uber doesn't make any money.
So yeah, it works for everybody. It works for me personally because I live in the marina and we travel approximately 1 block and pick up the other 2 people and then go. And so it's
me
like
too.
It couldn't be a better.
Does Uber make money?
There, but we don't talk about these things, but I'll just say we are extremely happy with how it's going, and I think you can probably read by how aggressively we're pushing it out nationwide and across the world that this is something that is a major focus for us and something we're very, very pleased with. So
it's pretty amazing from the air. How many people have used Uber Pool before? Wow. I mean, I take it from the airport. I don't need to, but I'm just like, I kind of feel bad being alone in the car because it feels so inefficient to me. I feel on an environmental basis, it irks me that I'm alone with 3 empty seats when I know there's 20 people just got off the flight or 100 people got off the flight.
The pickup experience at airports is particularly tough, because if you get one gate wrong, then you got to do an entire loop. So there's a bunch of work. Actually, one of my teams is working on making the airport experience much better.
How do you do that? You work with the airport to
so airports actually really love this because airports' number one concern is a big misconception. You think they hate Uber. They actually like Uber so long as we're paying the same fees as taxis are, because they're a business too. But what they love is reducing congestion. And so what has started to happen is that we're now delivering so many Uber Pool rides to SFO that they're actually seeing a visible reduction in the amount of traffic and congestion around those things. And so that's something where that is one of their KPIs is just, wait time for pickups and things like that.
Does that mean they'll give you a location to sit like they do in New York?
There are a number of, from that to technology-based ones where we'll get that real-time-like experience even though the driver's coming from the lot. There's a bunch of different ways we're working on solving it. I would say airports are also like their own semi-autonomous nations, so each one is distinct and working with them is different.
All right, let me give you a tough question here. And I know you're not responsible for all of Uber, but the prices have been driven down and the volume, the number of minutes a driver is working per hour has gone up, which is great. Obviously, if drivers are not happy, they can leave, and they do. I've been in cars, we probably all had this experience, where a driver goes over and uses the competitor's app and then goes and does an Instacart ride or whatever. Have we pushed the price of the ride too low at this point? Because I'm on Twitter, people know I'm an investor, and I have groups of people like, Jason, you have to talk to everybody at Uber and raise the rates. I know drivers always want to make more money, but how do you guys gauge if you've pushed it over the line and now we got to pull it back and raise prices?
Yeah. So
how does that work? How does the internal dialogue work?
Exactly. So I don't want to talk on the specifics because it's actually not my core team. But at the meta level, it is an absolutely numbers-driven thing that we believe very firmly ends up in the right answer. And the numbers are all the ones that you would expect us to look at. Fundamentally, it comes down to the health of the marketplace, which is measured by things like how much is surge happening, what is our utilization across the network, fundamentally what are driver earnings per hour looking like, and what is driver churn looking like. And so when you look at all those things, they hit at those are the results of what we experience as humans of, oh gosh, I couldn't get an Uber, or what are you talking about? Why is it surging 2.4 on a Monday afternoon? Or, hey, are the drivers staying or leaving? Are they happy or not? And so it is never easy knowing exactly what the right answer is, and you know Travis very well as I. He is one of saying, let's experiment hard, let's also learn and react quickly. And so we have very successfully rolled out price cuts year after year, and it absolutely stimulates demand. And in every single market where we do this, we see the expected results, which is driver earnings very quickly rebound back up and actually exceed where they were. So the right things happen, but I'll say it's never a smooth process. And there have been cases where we've gone too far, and we've been very straightforward about saying we've gone too far here and we're rolling back the prices. And
it has happened.
Oh, it has happened, absolutely. And we've even, if you look at the blog post that Travis put out at the beginning of this year talking about the price cuts, he very specifically cited examples from prior years where we rolled them back. And so it's something that he'll be very straightforward about. If we go too far, the numbers will tell us to roll it back.
It seems in that way the organization has matured a whole bunch with the experiments. In the early days, it didn't really matter. The experience didn't impact that many people. But now, how many drivers are there now? It's hundreds of thousands or millions?
Yeah, I don't know what our latest publicly disclosed number is, so I don't want to quote an exact number, but it's a tremendous number. So it is in the many hundreds of thousands, I believe is what we've talked about publicly.
Okay. What are we going to compete? This is the last one. Are we going to compete with the FedExes and UPSs of the world? Because the API is getting more and more sophisticated, and we saw a company here, I think it was ShipWallet yesterday. Yep. You've heard of them?
I just learned about them.
Okay.
Thanks to this conference.
Yeah, and there's this really interesting approach of like, hey, people are... and we have Uber Rush, I think, in New York. Yep. That's been a pretty interesting experiment for Josh out there. When we check out of local stores, is there just going to be an option to Uber it, and that will mean to FedEx it or to deliver it now, and I see it in my app where I see the fact that I just ordered shaving cream coming to me?
So I have a couple answers to this, and as you imagine, I've thought a lot about this since before Uber.
This is kind of your domain, too.
I ran Google Shopping Express
for 5 years, so
I've thought a lot about local delivery. I think the headline for me here is that FedEx and UPS have an incredible place in the American economy, that it will be a long time, if ever we would ever go there, because they are really designed as the backbones of overnight hub and spoke based transportation. That's how their entire systems work, and they are amazingly efficient at doing that. On an average UPS truck, you have 200 to 300 packages. And so they are doing, the key metric here is they drops per hour. They can do 30 and 40 drops per hour in dense cities like this.
Yeah.
We can't touch that for the longest time, nor would we ever really want to. But that overnight system is not optimized at all for intraday package delivery. And so I think you will just see an increasing divergence of there are two fundamental systems. Amazon and FedEx will continue to absolutely be a key part of global e-commerce. And I believe there will be a new layer of very low cost 2 to 3 hour delivery that is enabled as fulfilled from stores or individuals, basically Uber Rush, like in-town delivery from same day stuff. So I think they're going in two different directions, and they will remain on complementary tracks. The reason they will never necessarily converge is that until you build Amazon-like distribution centers in a city, local stores cannot compete on the cost basis. So with Shopping Express, it was always a little bit more expensive to order from your Target or your Safeway or your Costco than it was to order online, because Amazon can have 40 fulfillment centers, that's it, across the entire country. So they can operate incredibly efficiently, whereas a store has to stock its shelves and do things like that. And so if you want it today, you're going to get it through a network like Uber or...
But it's going to cost you $5.
It's going to cost you a little bit more, exactly.
Somebody's going to have to pay.
Somebody has to pay, exactly. And retailers have this margin, and if you want it tomorrow or overnight, then that's where the FedExes and OnTracks of the world.
And you're a somewhat active angel investor, correct?
Yes.
Still inside of Uber. I know Josh is very active in New York. He's in my syndicate. You're in my angel syndicate. So you invest. Travis is pretty cool with you all at the company Angel Investing. You have a philosophy of spreading a little bit of money around personally?
Mine is super simple. I try and stay out of the areas that I'm already personally heavily investing. It's your own diversification, right? And so for me, I don't want to do anything once I come here, nothing related to logistics, nothing related sort of on demand, just because I'm heavy in that with my time of being at Uber, and I don't want to create any conflict of interest. But there's lots of spaces, whether it's drones or biotech or things like that, that I think are incredibly interesting and exciting, and it's a fun way to participate.
Okay, let's make a bet. I like to do wagers with people. We get it on record. You're going to set the line, and then I'll pick over-under.
Okay.
You're going to set the line for when the majority of miles are driven autonomously in a major city in the United States. So whatever city you want, but the majority of miles in that city are driven autonomously. How many years? And this is going to be a sushi omakase lunch. You know, we'll cap it out at $500 a person or $1,000.
So I'm going to give you 2 lines.
Okay.
I'm going to give you, in the United States, it's going to take a while. So I'm going to give you 2024.
2024.
But if you go...
Which is 8 years from now.
8 years from now. If you broaden the scope to global, I'll give you your 2020.
2020, okay. In the 2020...
There's going to be some place in the world, yeah.
Well, you set the line perfectly. I got it. Okay. In major city globally, I'm going to take... Oh, fuck it. I'm taking the over in both. You got the under. So 2020, January 1st, 2020, I win. December, whatever, 31st, 2019. Okay, we bet it. It's a 2 sushi lunch, capped at $500 a person. We have our bets on the record.
Looking forward to it.
Producer Jackie's putting it into Google Calendar right now.
Excellent.
I think I'm going to...
You can one click from there. You can get an Uber to the dinner that you're paying for me.
Absolutely. All right, listen, this has been great. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jason.
Cheers now. Okay, everybody. Wow, we went way over. Let me just say thank you to Esri, Red Bull, Bitmatica, Honda, Dot Club, ChargeBee, and I think that's everybody I have to say thank you to. I'll see you all in the demo pit. Have a great lunch.